Today we're going to learn how to make this neat little decoration using all plant materials, so the timber skewers and the jute string. You could also do it with any other kind of twine, string. You could move out of that plant material side of things and actually do it with wool. So there's one that's been done with a multicoloured wool. Just to give you a little bit of decoration that's a bit different at this time of the year, or any time of the year that you wanted to have trees around. So this one I've done as a fairly loose weave, and I'll show you how you can get that tighter and get it maintained. But basically what you need to start with is 4 wooden skewers, some cut lengths of whatever twine you're going to use. So I'm using the jute string, so we'll talk about it in terms of jute string. There's 20 lengths here, 11 centimetres each, and then 2 lengths that are about 1.5 metres long, and that's what you'll need. So the first thing you need to do then is obviously get your Christmas or your tree shape. We'll just say tree shape today. So leave the pointed end facing at the base of the finished product, because that makes it just easier to get into your designs. And then you need to just cut a crossbar and then the 2 top spars. So, and keep the bits that you cut off because they're always useful. So here's one that I prepared earlier. So it's ready to go. So what we do first of all is we work on the crossbar. And this is a very simple technique that is, those of you who do macrame will recognise it straight away. Fold your twine in half like that, and then we're just going to loop it over. So I find underneath the bar is better, and then we just bring these 2 ends through that loop, over the bar and through the loop. And pull it down towards the base. And just keep repeating that till you've filled that cross section. And I'm going to turn it around so it's facing me, because it's somewhat faster and simpler to do, but you'll still be able to see the idea. So loop under the bar, put your 2 ends through the loop and pull it tight. That'll give you a fringe across the bottom. There we have it, the fringe on. You'll notice that I've left a bit of a gap, larger on one side than the other, and that's just to tie down these stringing that we're going to do for the rest of the tree. But you can always add more of the fringe when you've finished your design if you want it a bit fuller, or perhaps you wanted it multicoloured, and so you'd add another layer, just doing the same thing. But before we go on to doing the stringing, we're going to make this into a proper fringe. So same as you would with macrame, just need a comb and you just tease it out till you've got all of the fibres loose to make it fringe-like, and then we'll trim it up. So we've got a nice straight edge at the base. Somewhat messy, but well worth it. You see that I'm just spreading out those fringe pieces a little bit because I actually want it a little bit looser in the design that I'm going to use it in, which you'll see a little bit later. So I don't need it closely packed up the way the other one is. And then we trim them so that we get a nice straight line. We have, that's the first pass of our twine tree. Now, as you probably noticed, I've lost the connection here at this corner, so I'm just going to go away and re-glue that, and I'll be back to do the next part of our performance. So I've made the repairs to that corner of the structure, and so now we can do the stringing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in this one I wanted it to be reasonably rustic, so I didn't use any method of keeping it attached to the sides. I just did the weaving as I worked along because I liked that look. But in this one, I wanted it a much tighter finish, and so I actually I used hot glue as I went along at the edges just to hold it in place. And so that did make the weaving easier than this one. But doing it this way without attaching it to the sides and having that softer look, I actually just used pegs as I went along to hold each side in place as I was doing the weaving. But for this one, because I actually wanted it a little bit tighter than that first one, I'm going to use double-sided tape. So I'm going to run double-sided tape along each of these arms so that as I weave the jute string, it will attach to those places and won't move around so much, and I can get a reasonably tight finish. So we'll just do that. Sorry about the scissors banging on the table. Bit of a no-no. There, that's a bit quieter. Now what I'll do with this tape, as I peel it off, I'll wrap it around so that it covers the whole of that. And as always with double-sided tape, the trick is getting the start. So as you can see, there's the tape there, so I'll just wrap it around. Now I could have done a spiral up there, but I find this method a little bit easier on my hands to make it happen. And we like things that are a little bit easier for us to do. This also means you don't get the big dollops of hot glue and the strands when you're doing it this way, because the tape sort of disappears into the timber. Now, it's ready. We're ready to join our two side weaving pieces. Let's do that. Now you can either glue these at the start or you can tie them on. I like to tie them on because I like to know there's a good strong connection to the bar, and I generally tie it onto the crossbar rather than the sides because it just adds a little bit of geometric stability to the structure that you're making. And no need to try and trim this end off too much because you can just comb it into the rest of the fringe that you've got there. Just remember that all of these arms are sticky, so if you put any pressure on it, it's going to stick down onto your table as you're doing it. But once you start the weaving, you'll probably be holding it in your hand, so it'll be somewhat less of a problem. Now, simple weaving technique, one side at a time. So bring it over that arm. So you've gone under that arm, you want to go over the centre and back. And then over. Because you went under there, you go over on this side. And then you'll come back under. Now that's where, if you wanted to, you could put a peg. And we might just try that for the time being because that'll adhere it nicely to that sticky that we've got on the sides. Now with this side, same thing, under, which means we go over at the centre. And because we've come under, we're going to go over when we come to this side, and then we'll be ready to go back to do the same thing again on this side, and we'll use the peg to hold it in place. So now that we've done this side is on top, so now we need another one here. So we've come under from the side, so we go over at the top. We've come under from the centre, so we go over at the side. Stick it on, put the peg. So on this side, we've come under, we go over at the centre, under, so we come over at the side. Put the peg on. And it's basically just repeating that until you get to the top. And then at the top, as you can see with that one, just wind them around, and in that's probably a good place to be using the hot glue or some other strong adhesive to hold that top bit in place. And you could actually leave it like that, or you could put a little star or some other sort of decoration on it, and you'll see how these turn out in the design that I'm doing for you shortly.